we're very, we're very pleased that we've shown a little more understanding and recognition of our system, offensively and defensively. It's obvious that our guys they're operating a little more instinctively than they have been. They're not thinking as much; they just responding. And I think they're growing and improving in different areas. We still are working, still trying to develop, but I see the light coming on a little more with our guys. Their body language, they don't look as stressed as they have been. In the game the other night against Miami, with a playing against a veteran team, I looked up on several occasions. I had all 5 first-year players on the court playing against a very experienced Miami team, and I just, like any coach, I said I better get a few veterans back on the floor. But what I'm noticing that when in the early part of the game, we went with our second unit, but the energy that they brought to the game, the effort that they played with, and them being connected, I thought they gave us a little lift, and it gave us an opportunity to rest our other guys. And that it wasn't very long, but they held their own enough where the guys who had given us tremendous amount of energy at the beginning of the game was able to come back in a little fresher, especially Malik, being that has not been able to practice nearly as much, and he probably requires a little more, a few more breaks than something that he normally would under most circumstances. So I see us getting better, but now we need to go on the road and against a team that really we didn't execute very well at all against early in the year at Syracuse, and see can we get us a road victory. And we know that road victories are very hard to come by in the ACC.
Lanehart first.
Coach, you mentioned feeling more comfortable with what the team's doing. Is that particularly important against a team like Syracuse? Because like I said, if you're not confident and comfortable, they can make it a really long afternoon for you.
Well, I don't think I used the word comfortable. I said, I'm pleased that we're making progress. I'm a long ways from being comfortable because, we still trying to get our guys mentally and emotionally connected so that they can go out and really, really be more instinctive. I said we're making progress in those areas. But for instance, I think that Matt Cleveland is more comfortable with what we need from him. And the progress that Cam Fletcher was making before he got the fracture and he got sprained his wrist, he took a step back, and he's not getting those deflections and steals and driving the ball to the basket as much. And he's just not quite as sure of himself as he was beginning to be before he had that little setback. And so he's an important piece to us because he's athletic enough. He needs to be out in transition, giving us transition baskets. He needs to be giving us tip-ins and putbacks. And I think that the little break that he had there with his injury, I kind of took him back a little bit. You see that there are games where Caleb is a little more comfortable than others. And I think that when he makes a couple of shots early, it kind of gets him feeling a little more confident in what he's doing. And he has to work his way out of that regardless of whether or not the shots are falling or not. He still needs to stay aggressive and polite. We need for him to be a little bit more aggressive offensively. But because of the attention that he and Wyatt are getting, unlike what they've been able to, the type of attention they were getting earlier when you have more older, more experienced players, their role has changed, but people now, out of respect for their ability to shoot the ball, they're not giving them those uncontested threes that you've been accustomed to seeing them take. So we still working. Now we go into Syracuse playing against that zone, and the comment you made earlier, we didn't execute very well at all against their zone when we played them. Our cuts were slow. We didn't attack the gaps. What we had as a game plan, I'm not real sure our guys executed it very well, or they understood what we needed to do. At that particular point, that was the first time we had played against a zone defense. And we played like we had not had any experience playing against the zone defense. I mean, we weren't as crisp. Hopefully, we have a couple of days of preparation to concentrate on. I think they know a little bit more about what type of system we normally use. Now, what I'm hopeful of, though, is that we'll execute a lot better now that we're a little older, but we haven't not played against very many zones. And Tulane challenged us. I think the Boston University, I thought, used different variations of zones, and we did not execute very well against that. Hopefully, we'll be a lot better now that we're a little more familiar with our offensive system versus the zone. And I maybe then, Lane, I can feel a little more comfortable. Right now, I'm not very comfortable.
Leonard, do you use a game against an opponent the second time 5 weeks apart from the first one as a measuring stick? Is that the way you view it to any degree, or is it just completely separate than what happened back on December?
Well, obviously, being a part of the Big East playing against Syracuse, we're very familiar with their defensive schemes. They did do something a little different in terms of their zone the last time we played them, which I thought created some challenges for our players with some of the adjustments that they made. We are faced with that all the time, but because of us not having very much experience against that zone, it challenged our players. Now, to answer your question, we played against this zone system an awful lot. We think that we know how to play against, but as a program, we just did not execute what we normally execute against the zone. A lot of it because we hadn't played against very many zones, and our guys were just learning our zone defensive system. Zone offensive system. But watching the game, when we played them the last time, it was hard to watch because what we intended to do from a execution standpoint was not accomplished against them. Our ball movement, our ability to get the ball inside, how we pushed the ball down in transition, how we flowed into our system. We're going to use that. The mistakes we made definitely, as a teaching point today when we start our preparation in the film room, that hopefully make sure our guys understand, the proper way to execute against what has been a tremendous defense for years and years and years. So they're not going to change very much. They feel very comfortable with what has worked for them over the years. We just got to make sure that we make the necessary adjustments so that we can go out and play to our strengths. And the last time we did not execute very well at all. We were very tentative. We were unsure about how to attack it, and we definitely will use that as a teaching tool, and hopefully we'll be much better prepared in this game.
Go to Ira.
You mentioned how tough it is to win on the road in the ACC. Was there anything about the way you guys played at NC State that stands out that helped you guys be successful in that game?
I think a lot of it, but they played a very aggressive man-to-man defense, and we obviously have been playing against so many. So we were just executed very well. And now, do you remember what the score was in that game?
Yeah, it was high scoring and close, right?
Well, what was it, a 2-point game, Chuck?
Yeah, something like that.
Okay, so it was a typical ACC blowout. So So well, I guess what I'm saying is I don't want you to think that I feel that we just played lights out. We played well enough to win a 2-point game on the road, and you saw what they did at Louisville last night. So they're a very good basketball team. But I thought that their defensive system was different, and we were a little more familiar with playing against their man-to-man system than we were against Syracuse zone defense. And so I thought that was the biggest difference. And we were able to make some plays because of the familiarity with playing against the man-to-man system. Syracuse's zone system requires you, to really understand how to attack the famed 2-3 zone defense that he's used over the years. And I didn't think we were really quite experienced enough with each other to execute as well as we should have against Syracuse. Big difference.
Go to Bob Ferrante.
Coach, good morning. I'm curious, you've talked about the balance of patience versus push with some of these guys, some of these first year in the program guys. Now that you've had 4 games back from the holidays and from the COVID pause, is it easier to maybe push a little more in practice than maybe beforehand?
Well, here again, a lot depends on when you're having close games back to back to back. We've had a little setback from a conditioning standpoint because of the pause, but everyone's had to go through this. I think we are becoming more and more demanding of our guys because now we understand that there's some familiarity with our particular system. And I said earlier, it's complete opposite of where we've been in the past. We've always had, when you look back at it, and I'll probably repeat myself, all the way back to when we had Beasley and Bacon and those guys, we did have some veterans around to give us some leadership. And they kind of blended in. Then you had Isaac in with some veterans that kind of helped him a little bit. And then with Devin and those guys, the transition, that was a lot easier for them because they didn't have 3 other guys on the floor trying to figure out what they're supposed to do at the same time. Now there are a lot of times when we have only 1 veteran on the floor with maybe 4 new guys. And so the learning curve is a little steeper, and the time that it takes to develop the confidence and the familiarity with what you're supposed to do that allows you to be more instinctive than trying to concentrate. Am I in the right place? Am I making the right cut? Even if you go into the right place, sometimes you're thinking about it. And when you know what you're supposed to do, you just react. And we're not quite there yet. We're not quite there, but we're getting better. And that's one reason why we've been able to win the last 2 very, very tough games. And I also think the fact that Louisville was undefeated in the league, Miami was undefeated, and it raised our focus, and we knew we had to be at our very best in order to be successful. Now we're going on Syracuse, the fact that, they broke our winning streak. And so I think our guys will be, in the respect we have for what they do, I think we'll be a little more focused. And even though we'll push a little bit more, I think they'll want to overcome that lack of execution that we did in the Syracuse game. It's quite obvious. I mean, there were times when we might go 4 straight possessions without really getting into our system. We pushed the ball down the court, and somebody said, well, I think I got one, and we should have moved the ball and reversed it, or we'll make one pass and try to attack that zone defense. You can't do that, against a real good zone like Syracuse. But I think that was guys not really understanding or not buying in. I give them an 80-20 rule. Regardless of what we're doing, I give them 20% of the time, if you think that you can break the play or you can go get a good basket, I don't want the guys second guessing themselves. And so with that in mind, you can't come down and go 4 possessions of attacking on the 20% part of what our philosophy is. If you miss 2 or 3 shots in a row, then we need to reverse the ball, and get back into our system so we get higher percentage shots with better floor balance, with better opportunity to go get offensive rebounds. And we didn't do that in the Syracuse game because they don't pressure you. We had two or three periods in each half where we took quicker shots, lower percentage shots than we would have had we been more experienced in attacking the zone. But now we're going to be a little more demanding in our execution. We can push them a little bit more, but we also need to push a little bit more in transition. Early in the year, we were walking the ball down the court and just not into what we call Seminole basketball. We were still in the development stages. And a lot of times, I think from your guys' position, maybe not as much as the fans, you think just because guys are on the floor that they should be able to go ahead and perform. Well, it's not quite that easy. And when you have this many inexperienced guys, but we definitely will be pushing them. There's no doubt about that in terms of pace of the game, as well as trying to push them to execute what we have, what we feel like is the best way to attack their zone defense. If that answers your, I hope that answers your question.
Any follow-ups for Coach this morning?
Yeah, I just, Coach, are you seeing more connectivity and communication on defense recently?
Well, I think there's more effort and there's more of a connection with each other from a defensive standpoint. Let me give you an example. I thought in the game the other night that in Miami was a ISO team that they really attack off the dribble a lot. Well, we've had games where a guy would attack the baseline, but in our defensive system, the lowest man on the weak side is supposed to rotate all the way over outside the lane if his partner has been had a blow by, and we're supposed to stop him outside the lane or discourage him from coming until the guy who's guarding the dribbler can catch back up. Well, many times, if you're guarding the shooter on the weak side, you're concerned about leaving him for fear that he's going to get a wide open look, and you, instead of being on the midline, you're on the lane line, and you have an inability to get to the strong side lane line or step outside of it because you're starting from a position too far on the weak side. Well, in the Miami game, there were times they went baseline and our guys had rotated all the way over to stop the penetration, and they were able to get back to the weak side when the ball was reversed to the other side. Where early in the year, we were not doing that. We were not connected. We was more worried about their man and not understanding our team defensive concept. If we're going to pressure the ball on the wings, you're going to get blown by sometime. But our system's supposed to be, you got to have your inside foot up as opposed to your outside foot up, because if you got your outside foot up, you can't see your man. If you got your inside foot up, you can see your man and the ball at the same time. So you got more peripheral vision. But if your outside foot is up, then you lose the man. That guy goes for a lob. If your inside foot's up, you can see the guy penetrating and you can rotate over to help. But when you rotate over, the guy at the top is supposed to what you call seal the baseline, and it all works together. Well, that was not what we were doing earlier. The guy at the top, the guy would rotate over, and then the other guy wouldn't seal, so now the guy would come and throw the ball over to the guy in the corner, and he get a wide open shot. We're more familiar with that type of defensive rotation now, and we're able to execute. So, yes, to answer your question, we're a little more connected there. And plus, when you know your rotations a little better, sometimes you can move a little faster because you're not thinking, you're just reacting on the defensive side. And against them, they got three guys that really, really take you off the dribble, but they also are three great shooters. And their center, they'll put a post guy in there who's a three-point shooter. So that's challenging for guys like Quincy and guys like Naheem, because all their life they've played against people who just go block the block in the paint. So now they're switching off on point guards, and they got to contain the dribble, and that's a whole new set of circumstances for them. And so hopefully we're a little bit better with those defensive schemes than we have in the past, and hopefully that will allow us to be a little more consistent in the carrier zone. And I'm sure that I understand that the weather is going to be real nice and warm up there for us. And I'm thinking about taking my swimming shorts so I can sit out by the pool and get some sun.